All right, was that time? Predictor model. I can't wait to hear the predictor model this week because we got a lot of action. We're back to the road courses, back to what I call more of a standard road course, Indy road course. No more streets of Chicago. This is a road course. We have small history. Third race, right, Professor? Third race for the Cup guys on the road course. Monster weekend on NBC. We have IndyCar, Xfinity on Saturday, Cup on Sunday. We're going to cover all three. Obviously, focus on Cup. But we have last road course was SVG 100-1. Ring the bell. Australian supercar guy. He's from New Zealand. He came up here and punched them all in the nose. A big win. But now we have a loaded deck behind him. You're going to hear name Brody Kostecki. You don't know who he is. He's another supercar guy. You're going to recognize Jensen Button. We've seen him before. We have Kamui Kobayashi. If you haven't heard of him, Google him. On the WEC, unbelievable. In IMSA, he's unbelievable. Japanese driver. And then who else am I missing? Oh, and Rockenfeller. We basically have 2/3 of the Garage 56 entry. The only one we're missing is the NASCAR guy in Jimmy. So there's a lot of drivers that we don't normally see, and I only say all that pre-predictor because I want to know how they're handled. So, all right, Professor, floor is yours.
So on the predictor, we have Tyler Reddick at the top. He's won 3 of the last 7 road courses, including this race last year. He won COTA this year. We go to Kyle Larson. Then Chris Buescher, which is that's a name people aren't going to really think about, but he's been really good on the road courses. He's been top 10 the last 8 races. Allmendinger, Chase Elliott, and then your guy SVG in 6th. And it's hard this week trying to do the predictor. The computer really struggles with these ringers, if we will. But he comes in, he's 1 for 1. And it's hard to go against him when you see, like, you look at all the numbers, including like his speed at Chicago and the laps he led at Chicago. It's hard for the computer not to put him in the top 10, really.
All right, so we're going to call that Tier 1. So I got some questions on Tier 1. I can believe Reddick.
Yep.
I actually could believe Buescher because his consistency is very good. The Dinger I can get my mind around. But I struggle a little bit with Larson and Elliott. You got to give me a little defense on Larson and Elliott. While Elliott, and everybody wants to talk about road courses, it has been a major decline, or at least in my opinion, it's been a major decline in this car from what he did in the old car. Is that fair, or am I foul with that opinion?
So when you talk about Elliott, I think it's fair when it comes to wins, but when it comes to everything else, like in the last 11 races, he's got no wins, but 7 top 5s, 8 top 10s, average finish of 7th. In the prior...
And you say 11 because that's how many next-gen road courses
it's just, I just broke it. I think there's been 9, but I broke it down by 11 for him because of the way it goes wins and no wins wise. But, like, he hasn't been
basically
bad.
That's the professor saying it was a better stat for TV, so that's you're getting. I'm not redoing it for the pod.
It's still the same. It's very similar for next gen too. Like, he hasn't been bad in the next gen.
Oh, all right. So what you're saying is, while it looks worse because he's not winning, he's still fast.
Yeah, like he was 3rd at Chicago, 5th at Sonoma. So,
okay. Well, give me some Larson stats then. How are you getting Larson in there?
Well, Larson, he's won 4 of the last 14 road course races. He won in this car last year at Watkins Glen. He was 4th at Chicago, 8th at Sonoma. You want more?
No, that's good. And the one race he finished in Indy, he was like top 3, and the other one he got cannonballed into turn 1. Well, actually, that's not true. He did the cannonballing. That's the wreck.
That's where he missed the braking zone or something.
Yeah, that's like the we're not sure what happened wreck. Larson took credit as a driver mistake, was as a former crew chief. I really appreciate to this day. Man, I don't know. Seems like a pretty egregious mistake for Larson. I'm not sure if something didn't go wrong with the car, which I applaud him if he doesn't want to point the finger. But either way, he was the cannonball into turn 1.
That's right.
I can't remember. He got a bunch of them. A lot of guys were like, whoa, dude, where are you going?
Talk about real quick, though, in Tier 1 there, SVG, the street course versus the road course.
So
and what's
this is the $1 million question. All right, so let's talk about SVG. SVG he's a New Zealand driver, runs in Australia. they run supercars. The supercar is a little lighter than an Xfinity or than a Cup car. Same style of shifting, has one extra speed. It's a 6-speed instead of a 5-speed. But when you look at wheel size, tire sidewall, everything the driver would really feel, like how much car movement, how the downforce is generated, that is all very similar to a Cup car. In supercars, they are refereed much tougher. Like if you run into the back of somebody, if you pull a NASCAR type move, that's a penalty. In the last race, in one of the last races, he got a penalty for rough driving, was pulled off the podium. I actually think that helps him. So, where everybody else comes around with white gloves and they're used to no contact, they get into NASCAR. Like Jenson Button, I think his biggest challenge is when they go 5 wide into 1 with the, FU move 4 doors wide. He's like, holy smokes, what are you guys doing? I think that's more natural for SVG. So I think I add all that up as why I think it worked. Now, to your question about the street course, very little practice. First ever street course in NASCAR. We saw guys like Chase Elliott hit an inside wall. We saw Kevin Harvick hit an inside wall. We've seen some very talented guys, Hamlin, make these mistakes. So it is very different. So obviously SVG, lots of street experience. So that is really the million-dollar question, and I can't answer it, right? Like, how much more level is the playing field at a track? Now, listen, if we were going to Watkins Glen, I would say, listen, man, I don't believe this SVG top 10 thing. Because Cup guys have been running Watkins Glen forever. My whole life they've been going to the Glen. And it's not a very technical road course. It's a real fast road course. Kind of more of a Cup guy. Indy's kind of that mix, right? We've only been there twice. It is kind of technical in some areas. So I know I haven't answered the question because I don't know the answer. There's definitely a street, without a doubt, there was a street course factor that helped him. There was also he's the new guy, we're going to be nice factor. Let me tell you, some egos got hurt. They had to have. And I think there's some Cup guys when, SVG inside, nope, I'm driving you all the way down in the corner. I'm not going to let you by. But I will say, it not just his win, his car control in the last 10% of that race. The move nobody talks about is he made a pass from 6 to 7 where the caution came out and he didn't have the lead. That was the most impressive move I had seen at Chicago in a weekend. And nobody talks about it because it got pulled away. So listen, I don't know. Here's the thing. What do I think about SVG? I think minus 250 in the top 10 is a bad bet. I think anything top 3 or top 5 is a bad bet. I think 10 to 1, I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty big correction. I know he's 1 for 1, but holy smokes, that's a big correction on the odds. So I actually think the professor's predictor is a little gracious. I would have put him like somewhere inside the top 10, but like he said, it's hard with only one stat.
Yep.
And I think, we're going to see. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it all. So that's tier 1. I questioned HMS. Let's go tier 2.
Kyle Busch. You going to question him or not?
Not yet.
Okay.
I want to see who you have with me.
William Byron, Martin Truex, Michael McDowell, Christopher Bell.
Okay, so I am going to ask Kyle Busch. He's not tier 1, or is he right on the brink? Because he's had 4 straight top 5.
Yeah, he's right on the
runner up. Okay, so Kyle Busch is a high level tier 2.
Yep.
Byron?
Yeah, I think the computer loves his 4 wins this season. He was 5th at Coda earlier this year. Average finish on the road course this year is 10th, so I think he's okay being there at 8th.
Truex, McDowell, Bell. I feel pretty good about all of those.
So Truex is the one we should talk about.
Floor is yours.
So, I'm the biggest Truex guy, but he only has 2 top 10s in the next gen on the road courses. And 4 of his 5 road course wins have come at Sonoma. Finishes of, 15th and 21st at Indy on the road course. So I think the odds really love him too, but I can't get him higher than this tier 2 back half of the top 10.
I mean, he's a predominant favorite in the books. I mean, not even close. I mean, look at his top 10 minus 450.
I wish you could take the opposite.
So why is he so good at Sonoma, Stevie? Like, where does that translate road course wise?
So Sonoma, I think, is a magical mix of road courses and very, very, very low grip. And when you look at Truex's style, and it's really why I lost against Chris Buescher, and I'm not questioning his style because he's done it his whole career. The Hamlin-Larson move at Pocono, Truex is never going to do that, ever. That's not Truex. It's never been his move. He's a non-contact driver. That's why he gets so pissed when Chastain was running him all over a couple years ago, because that's not his move. So he expects you to race him like he would race you. Mm-hmm. And I have seen him lose races that he could have won by pushing on guys, and that's not his style. And I think that the reason I bring that up is because Sonoma is a little of that old school egg under the gas pedal. Like, man, lap 1 to lap 2, you go slower. Lap 2 to lap 3, you go slower. I mean, the pavement out there is like the Darlington of road courses. Slippery. And he makes very little mistakes. I think James Small gave him a good car out there, and I just think it suits his style, right? It's very, very efficient at Sonoma. But just because you turn both directions doesn't mean they're all the same, right? Like Sonoma to Watkins Glen is like Martinsville to Talladega. I mean, they're totally different racetracks. So I have to agree with your assessment. I think the books are giving Truex a lot of I think he's going to be better this year because they just have more swagger. But I don't have him as the same favorite that the books have him. I had him as like a 10, 12, 14 to 1-ish, like an Allmendinger, Bell, Larson odds. But the books have him all the way to like 400, 4 to 1. I think I actually made a note right here as a potential fade. We have to see what he is in his matchups because I'm not willing to say fade. But that may be somebody you're going to get credit to go against.
Mm-hmm.
How about your tier 3, which, by the way, this color is barely good enough. I mean, if my eyes were any older, I wouldn't be able to see the difference.
Logano, Hamlin, Harvick, Austin Cindric.
I'd love to talk about something here. I guess Cindric is a little surprising to be 15th, but he just really hasn't shown up in the Cup races like he did in Xfinity. Xfinity, he was really fast at the road courses.
Now I will say that he's one of 2 guys that finished top 10 in both of these Indy road course races.
Okay.
So I think, and you look at his numbers overall on road courses are pretty good. He just hasn't contended for wins.